Good morning to the support team from Parliament, from various divisions in Parliament, and in particular, the team that supports SCOF. Good morning to and welcome officials from National Treasury, Jobs Fund, and other entities that report to National Treasury. I see there is Cindy here, our friend whom I haven't seen for a long time from SARS. You are also welcome. Welcome the media, welcome the public. The meeting is officially open. Are there apologies?
No apologies received, Chair, besides the standing apology from Mr. Maswale.
Yes, Honorable Maswale, ill health. We continue to wish him speedy recovery so that he can join us very soon. Let's move to the next item, because the purpose of the meeting today is to get a briefing from National Treasury on the impact and the effectiveness of the Jobs Fund plans for the recapitalization and future contribution. Treasury, over to you.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning to the members of the committee. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you for the invitation and the opportunity to present on the performance and the impact of the Jobs Fund. I am Najwa. I am the DDG Employment Facilitation, and I am responsible for this program. I'm joined by my senior management team, Eve Leipold-George, who is the Development Finance Manager, Xavier Edziwa, who is the Project Director, Vuyo Tetiana, who is the Head of M&E, Nazim Hendricks, who is the Technical Advisor, Terence Kaswa, who is our Risk Manager, and Neville Pretorius, who is our Finance Manager, Gerna Swanepoel, who is the Head of Legal, and Alden Edwards, who is our Grant Manager. As you can see, Chair, we are very excited, but also deeply appreciative of being able to present this morning to the committee. The committee has requested that we brief the committee on the impact and the effectiveness of the Jobs Fund, the plans for its recapitalization, and the future contribution. We also note that in the budgetary review and recommendation report of this committee on the 14th of March, concern was raised that grant funding was less than the projected amount. Honourable Chair and members of the committee, our presentation will provide a brief introduction to the Jobs Fund and the effectiveness of a challenge fund mechanism to identify interventions that competitively respond to the challenge of sustainable job creation. We will share with you how the effective use of limited funding resources can have impact what was originally envisaged. How we achieved greater impact by crowding in funding and technical support from the private sector and others to a government-led program. We will share with you specific project examples that demonstrate impact the Jobs Fund has had beyond grant payments. We will demonstrate that through risk sharing, it is possible to facilitate development of institutional capacity that can be leveraged to deliver development programs and create an ecosystem of support that is focused on the delivery of sustainable job creation. We will further demonstrate that a slowdown in disbursement has not curtailed the delivery of sustainable jobs and broader market impact. That robust project management and an effective governance framework, including rigorous monitoring and evaluation, has enabled the fund to also pursue its knowledge sharing agenda. Very many useful lessons have been shared about how best to support SMMEs, emerging farmers, micro enterprises, and others. And we have done this across multiple sectors. I now hand you over to Vuyo Tatiana, who is the head of M&E at the Jobs Fund, and he will do the presentation. Thank you so much, Chair and the committee. Vuyo, over to you.
Great, thank you very much, Nadra. Once again, a very good morning to yourself, Honourable Chairperson, and the rest of the Honourable Committee members. Nadra, are you going to, so let me just see if I'm able to share on my side. No, I can't.
I have asked them to make you co-host, Vuyo.
Okay.
Sorry, Vuyo is co-host.
Okay, Vuyo, you are co-host, so you are able to share your screen.
All right, let me just go there. Right.
At the bottom of your screen, this is Zoom now, you're used to Teams.
Yeah.
Go down at the bottom, there's a green icon, it says share screen, and just click on that.
Sure, I have, but the share icon is still disabled on my end. I'm not sure.
I've shared my screen, is that fine?
Awesome, okay, great. Let's proceed on that basis. Thank you very much, Nadra. Apologies for that. Honorable Chair and honorable members, once again, thank you very much. I just want to also reiterate Nadra's appreciation for the opportunity to engage with the committee on the work of the Jobs Fund today. In our presentation today, we want to remind the committee about what the Jobs Fund is all about and its mandate. We want to talk about the fund's performance to date and the issues that affect this performance. We want to highlight the impact that the fund has had to date, impacts drawn from our own reporting, as well as independent studies conducted on the work of the fund. And then finally, we want to appraise the committee on the key tenets of our recapitalisation proposal to the National Treasury. Next slide, please. Honourable Chairperson, the Jobs Fund is a National Treasury programme and was capitalised in 2011 with 9 billion rand to uncover and pilot innovative job creation models on a co-funded basis. Its mandate is twofold: to test innovative job creation models and share lessons and good practice, thus promoting wider market adoption of scalable and replicable models. The fund was established in a context of high levels of unemployment in the country. However, the fund was never meant to be a mass employment creation program, but rather government's research and development capability with respect to job creation interventions. The Jobs Fund deploys the Challenge Fund instrument to test job creation models and identifies, through experimentation, solutions that can eventually be replicated and scaled. Through the Challenge Fund instrument, we are able to draw on the most competitive ideas and the latest innovation from across economic sectors. We are able to partner with capable and experienced intermediaries, bringing their expertise and networks to bear on solving for some of our most stubborn challenges. We are also able to leverage public funds to crowd in significant private sector and other resources in order to maximize investment in social outcomes. The Jobs Fund complements other government programs that aim to address earning and employment challenges by encouraging innovation that supports long-term sustainable job creation. The Jobs Fund has from inception recognized the importance for any government program to be able to monitor and systematically estimate its impacts. This is especially so in the context of constrained fiscal resources. The Jobs Fund, therefore, has a rigorous monitoring, reporting, evaluation, and learning framework, which supports the fund's learning and dissemination agenda. Next slide, please. In this slide, we summarize the Jobs Fund's performance against its headline indicators, being those of jobs and disbursements. As at the 31st of March 2023, the Jobs Fund has achieved over 130% of its original job creation target. The fund has to date created over 195,000 new and placement jobs against a target of 150,000. These jobs are realized against a grant disbursement of 6.4 billion thus far. The grant disbursement has attracted over 13 billion of cash contributions from the Jobs Fund's partners to date. Chair, not many grant funding programs can claim these levels of leverage from largely private sector partnerships. The Jobs Fund has to date contracted with 163 partners, the majority of which, about 85% of our partners, are either private sector or not-for-profit entities. The Jobs Fund has trained over 306,000 participants in a variety of market-related skills. Over and above the 195,000 permanent jobs that have been created with our partners, more than 83,000 seasonal and short-term jobs have been created over the life of the fund. More than 23,000 internships have also been successfully completed by mainly young people. Over 72,000 SMMEs and smallholder farmers have been supported through job funded initiatives. More than 51,000 jobs have been reported by partners whose implementation period with the Jobs Fund has come to an end. These job creation numbers post the fund's period of involvement are encouraging, as they are indicative of the catalytic effects of the fund's support. Next slide, please. Honorable members, the modest performance the fund has been able to achieve against its headline indicators has been against a backdrop of persistent factors that have curtailed this performance. The impact of these factors has become particularly acute on the performance of the fund's portfolio in recent years. This especially as the fund is a co-funded program, requiring that our partners are able to raise the requisite match funding in order for the fund to disburse its grant. Less than favorable economic growth conditions and periodic recessions over the past 10 years have, amongst other things, seen a reduction in demand for SMME goods and services, thus having the effect of shrinking markets for these SMMEs. Without markets, there are no sales, no revenue, no expansion for SMMEs. This all then has an impact on their ability to raise match funding and also requests for disbursements from the Jobs Fund. It is estimated that South Africa needs growth rates that are in excess of 5% per annum to make a meaningful dent on unemployment. However, our growth rates between 2016 and 2022 have averaged at 0.6%. Unprecedented drought conditions that commenced in 2015 have had a significant impact on the Jobs Fund's sizable agriculture portfolio, affecting farmer productivity as well as revenues. The consequent slowing of agricultural activities has impacted the quantum of disbursements made to this portfolio. Scientists predict that while rainfall has improved in recent months, South Africa is likely to face more frequent and prolonged droughts into the future. Challenges experienced at key national institutions such as Transnet, Land Bank, and Eskom have also had a detrimental impact on the performance of the fund's portfolio. The challenges at Transnet, relating more recently to the strike action in 2022, disrupted export supply chains. Once again, the fund's agriculture portfolio was hardest hit in this respect, with perishable produce lying idle at ports for days, resulting in product loss or drastically reduced revenues. In other instances, these challenges resulted in increases in transport costs and shipping delays for our partners. The Land Bank had to withdraw from a 200 million rand initiative that was set to benefit Black farmers on account of the institution's liquidity challenges. Jobs Fund partners had to then seek out other match funding partners to replace the Land Bank as a match funder. This resulted in significant implementation delays and missed disbursements. Next slide, please. The worsening power supply crisis has significantly hampered economic activity across all sectors. The Jobs Fund is currently conducting a SNAP study to better understand its impact on our implementing partners more deeply. Increases in the interest rate have largely affected the fund's on-lending portfolio. Every time interest rates go up, SMMEs find it harder to meet their loan obligations with lenders. The recent successive hikes will have a negative impact on the rate of disbursements and job creation. COVID-19 lockdowns have devastated supply chains that were already vulnerable on account of low economic growth. The prolonged closure of businesses, coupled with the financial burden many carried in maintaining payrolls, resulted in depleted cash reserves and increased indebtedness. This meant that many businesses continue to struggle to recover post-COVID. And these are the lucky ones that have in fact survived the effects of COVID lockdowns. Had it not been for the Jobs Fund's 240 million rand COVID relief program, many of the fund's initiatives would have also been lost, along with the investments that had been poured into these businesses. More than 10,000 jobs amongst the Jobs Fund partners were saved during the COVID pandemic on account of the COVID relief program. The civil unrest of July 2021 and the 2022 KZN floods dealt a serious blow to a number of Jobs Fund partners. The suspension of operations and the damage to property resulted in protracted implementation delays as initiatives tried to get back on their feet. This again affected productivity, disbursements, and jobs. The war in Ukraine has also had a negative impact on the large global producers of agricultural products, some of which are used as inputs in farming operations. So the increase in prices of these products impacts small producers' ability to remain viable businesses. Next slide, please. Honorable Chairperson, the Jobs Fund's claims on impact are not just the result of our rigorous monitoring, reporting, and verification framework, but also of a number of independent studies, reviews, and evaluations. The fund is also regularly audited by the Auditor General. Evidence gathered from all these sources suggests that the Jobs Fund's deployment of the Challenge Fund instrument has enabled government to achieve a number of developmental objectives, such as crowding in and maintaining of private sector partnerships and leveraging their expertise and resources in responding to the unemployment challenge. The addressing of both demand and supply side constraints to employment creation, the incentivizing of investment in innovation through risk sharing, and in so doing, de-risk investment into job creation interventions traditionally deemed to be too risky. Government has also been able, through the Challenge Fund instrument, to leverage private sector investments, where in the Jobs Fund's case, this has resulted in the substantial attraction of 13 billion to date of additional resources for job creation. The work of the fund has also contributed to improved implementation capability in the market through the promotion of robust institutions and ecosystems of support. Next slide, please. The jobs that are created through our intervention have been confirmed to be indeed long-term, lasting on average 3 years at any one employer. These are some of the results of an independent 3-year longitudinal study that traced the impacts of support for work seeker and enterprise development projects on participants. Other results of this study point to how a good proportion of Jobs Fund beneficiaries in the support for work seeker space are employed within the first 6 months of their participation in an intervention. The results show how the levels of employment of Jobs Fund beneficiaries grew over the 3 years of the Tracer study, notwithstanding the COVID lockdowns and the civil unrest in July 2021. The results of the study also show how a significant majority, about 75%, of business owners supported through the Jobs Fund were still running their own businesses, and that in fact, about 20% of these business owners were running additional businesses. The results also show how over 93% of business owners kept financial records and saw a growth in the average salaries they earned from their businesses over the study period. In leveraging private capital and in using a competitive process to uncover the best ideas, the Jobs Fund has generated new sustainable job creation in a cost-efficient and cost-effective way. Independent reviews, including a National Treasury expenditure review in 2022, have found that both the fund's cost per job, which sits around 23,000, and operating costs, which are between 10% and 11% of disbursed funds, are highly competitive when compared to other employment initiatives, as well as DFIs and challenge funds globally. So cumulatively, the Jobs Fund is at about 96% of its program expenditure, notwithstanding slowing disbursements. As a learning fund, the Jobs Fund has been able to generate learning and evidence that supports an understanding of what works and what doesn't work for job creation within the South African context. This knowledge is integral in being able to support replication and scaling of successful job creation models. Jobs Fund initiatives have a specific bias toward youth and women, as these are the groups that are most structurally marginalized in our economy. To date, youth comprise 64%. Apologies for the typo there, Chair. Youth comprise 64% of the jobs created through our supported initiatives, while women account for 58%. Those numbers are just swapped around there. These modest outcomes demonstrate that where there is intentionality about correcting some of the structural inequities, we are able to begin to see change. The Jobs Fund has piloted a variety of job creation models and has supported initiatives that have, for instance, provided guarantee mechanisms for SMME funding, improved participation of farmers in value chains, facilitated pathways for work seekers into employment, supported the growth of township businesses through the provision of technology solutions, and supported access to finance and business development services for micro enterprises in the informal sector. Next slide, please. Honorable Chair, a few examples of some of these models within our portfolio include the following. The first project is the Ashburton project. This project uses the grant as a guarantee in the market to de-risk investments into SMMEs that would otherwise not have had access to this type of funding. Ashburton has managed to raise 900 million in investments for SMMEs off the back of utilizing the grant as a guarantee. The project has also created over 7,000 jobs and is beginning to change perceptions about the risk profile of SMMEs. The next project is A2Pay. A2Pay provides spaza shop owners with a point of sale technology to bring vital prepaid services and products to peri-urban and rural communities. Participants undergo business management training and mentorship. A2Pay has supported over 8,000 spazas, creating over 10,000 sustainable jobs, and is a success story on how technology can be deployed to support the growth and resilience of township economies. The Citrus Growers Association project establishes a citrus development fund, which provides access to capital for the establishment and expansion of Black-owned citrus farmers. It offers a tailored financial product, which comprises a combination of grant and loan, both at 50%, and is only repayable when the orchards reach their productive capacity. The project has to date approved loans in excess of 100 million rand to Black citrus growers. This project is, however, also a case in point on the sensitivities of export supply chains to both domestic and international shocks, such as the Transnet strikes that we spoke about, as well as the EU ban of South African fruit on fears of black spot disease. The Green Outcomes Fund is an example of a project that operates on an outcomes basis. This means that the grant is paid to investors only once jobs are delivered and evidenced. The Green Outcomes Fund has raised more than 405 million rand from private investors. This money is committed to funding early-stage SMEs in the green economy. Next slide, please. Honorable members, in closing of our highlights of the Jobs Fund's impact, we wish to report that the Jobs Fund has also played a pivotal role in the rollout of the Presidential Youth Employment Intervention programs. The fund was appointed as fund manager for 2 funding rounds on behalf of the National Youth Development Agency, the NYDA, and the Department of Employment and Labor. For the NYDA, the Jobs Fund ran the first iteration of its National Youth Service. For the Department of Employment and Labor, the Jobs Fund ran the department's first Innovation Fund funding round, as well as the appointment and management of the National Pathway Manager. Under the National Youth Service Program, 13 partners were able to improve young people's agency and ability to more meaningfully participate in the economy by providing earning and learning opportunities to 47,000 unemployed young people within a space of just 12 months. Under the Innovation Program, 10 partner organizations were contracted and delivered support and earning opportunities to 9,700 unemployed young people, also within a span of 12 months. In both these instances, the Department of Employment and Labor and the NYDA recognized the advantage of exploiting the fund's existing capability in ensuring the quick delivery of the two funding rounds for the benefit of thousands of young people. The National Pathway Manager, Harambee, is an organization that was first supported by the Jobs Fund from as early as 2012. As the Pathway Manager today, it is responsible for the effective coordination of youth interventions across government departments and facilitates the pathwaying of unemployed youth into earning opportunities via an electronic platform, the sayouth.mobi platform. An ecosystem of partners, including government departments, has come together on this platform to provide a one-stop shop service of matching young people to appropriate learning and earning opportunities. Next slide, please. Honorable members, given the implementation capability demonstrated by the Jobs Fund since its inception, and the role that it has continued, that it can continue to play in the country, we believe that there is a strong case for its continued support and replication. The conditions that gave rise for the establishment of the Jobs Fund continue to prevail and have indeed worsened in the past 10 years. Due to a number of factors, including the shocks that we've discussed here this morning, the private sector is not yet ready to go it alone in adopting those job creation models that have been proven successful by the Jobs Fund in recent years. It behooves government, therefore, to stand in the gap and continue to play a leading and an enabling role in the market by partnering with initiatives that remain committed to contributing to unemployment in the country. To this end, the Jobs Fund has requested an additional 3 billion rand from the National Treasury to roll out new funding rounds. Next slide, please. The Jobs Fund has identified 3 significant job creation areas that it would seek to explore further once recapitalized. These areas include the informal economy, the digital economy, and business process outsourcing. It is important, we believe, to confirm fund allocation in advance of rolling out funding rounds in order to signal to the market that funds have been made available for a funding round, to also signal and to also commence with project origination work, as it takes time to develop bankable project ideas. Previous experience has shown us that about 70 to 80% of successful applications actually are originated ideas. With a funding allocation secured in the current financial year, the initial set of funds would only flow from the 2024-25 financial year, with the balance of these funds flowing beyond the MTEF period. Next slide, please. Honorable members of the committee, in summary, the Jobs Fund has the wherewithal to play a unique and complementary role in support of government's efforts in combating unemployment and other socioeconomic challenges. This is because the fund has a proven track record of successful and cost-effective deployment of the Challenge Fund instrument. It has deployed this instrument across multiple sectors of the economy, having uncovered several replicable and scalable job creation models. It has proven itself in the market as a credible development partner, attracting billions of private sector and other resources for purposes of investing in much needed social outcomes. By our estimation, it would be to the benefit of government and the country to deploy existing and proven implementation capability that enjoys a good reputation with capable and well-resourced private sector and NPO partners. In its work, the fund has multiplied government's initial 9 billion rand allocation to job creation, all while implementing a flexible, risk-sharing funding instrument that supports optimum allocative efficiencies. And because the Jobs Fund has piloted a number of job creation models, we are clearer about what works and what does not work in our market. To leverage the fund's expertise and knowledge means that we are able to reduce the cost of intervention startup and the time it takes to reach the intended beneficiaries. We are able to reduce performance risk of new interventions and are able to improve government's social outcomes when investing in social impact. Chair, at this point, I would like to invite the head of the Jobs Fund, Najwa, for any final closing remarks. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Boyo. Thank you very much to the committee, honourable members. I hope that through our presentation this morning, we have been able to provide you with a small glimpse into the work that we do at the Jobs Fund. Risk and innovation require patient capital. Too often, we see the skeletons of aborted projects along the way where funders change their priorities, where funding support is not accompanied by technical support, access to market, enabling infrastructure, and business development services. These are all prerequisites to building sustainability in the growth of SMMEs. In this, the Jobs Fund is different. We've also tried to demonstrate to you the range of interventions that the Jobs Fund has supported, from working with asset managers to working within the informal economy. Our approach has been premised on partnering with intermediaries, whether they are from the private sector or the non-profit sector. And this has enabled us to deepen our reach and have greater impact in this space of job creation. Thank you very much, Honourable Chair, committee members. I now hand over to yourselves for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, there you, our chair, my network is inconsistent. Please proceed.
Thank you, honorable members. Thank you, Chair. I think as you call yourself a job fund team, indeed, the presentation was clear. We understand now what the job fund is, how it performed, how its performance is up to date, and also, you know, how effective it is up to so far. But now it is time for questions from honorable members and comments or clarity-seeking questions. Over to you, honorable members. Thank you.
Honorable Chair.
I see the hand of Honorable Buthelezi and Honorable Shibambu. In that order, please. Go ahead, yes. Honorable, okay. Yes.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. I've got just one question to ask, but firstly, I need to really appreciate the presentation. This program is one of those that are very impressive, which we hardly hear from government programs. So that is much noted. I just want to find out whether there is a relationship that exists between the Jobs Fund and the Department of Education, because we are all aware that most of our challenges in terms of creating job opportunities emanates from the fact that our education system in the main does not produce what is required by the job market. So having been there and trying to leverage skills across, is there a relationship that exists between themselves and the department in trying to assist it to such it's able to direct its attention to those areas that will actually enable people to be employable, so to say? Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Shivambo.
No, thank you very much, Chair. I honestly think this is the most suspicious presentation that Parliament had ever got to be given to. Like, and I think would be extremely gullible to could just believe all these things that have been presented here. And so people come here and talk like robots to ask for 3 billion rand for jobs fund. 3 billion rand. And then present the picture that everything else is perfect and it's resolving unemployment, when unemployment is increasing in South Africa. And then we must believe that. I think, can we please be given a list of who are the recipients of the money that has been given to the jobs fund? Like which companies? A breakdown like of all the companies that were given the money and how many jobs they create at what levels and what sectors. This is the most suspicious thing ever. And if we're gullible, we're going to just fall into a trap and think that, no, this is a positive intervention. I don't believe these things that are being said here, honestly speaking. Like let's get the list of who got to be given how much money. Let's check the demographics of the companies that received the money, how much, each and every company, and how many jobs they create, where, and who are the people that they employed through this jobs fund. And I think, like, if we were to, as public representatives, as people who are representing the people, if we were to believe this, then let's just leave this thing. We're not going to go anywhere. Can we please be given a breakdown of which companies got this money and who did they employ? Like, can we get at least a breakdown of that? But because like that is my intervention, Chair, and I'm very, very, very serious about that. Like, can we be given the list of the companies that have received the money thus far, and who did they employ at what level, so that we can be able to make follow-up clearly and everything else? Because like this is the most suspicious presentation ever given to any parliamentary committee. Let's please get the clear detail in terms of what happens. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think it's Honorable Abraham now.
Yes, Honorable Chairperson, good morning to yourself, to the Honorable Parliament and National Treasury reps. Chair needs to appreciate the presentation. Of course, I have a few questions that I need answers to. My first question is how the impact, because we're talking impact here, how can the the impact of the jobs fund be compared to the rate of unemployment in the country? What kind of impact is it making? Is there kind of a comparative study as from when it was started and up to where we are today? You know, my second question really revolves around monitoring. When we give a company funds to employ so many people, do we have mechanisms to follow that up so that we know that when we say that company ABC has employed so many people, at least scientifically, we can also attest to that. Thirdly, my chairperson, is the issue of people, because there are categories of unemployed people. There are people who have even stopped looking for jobs. And I was wondering, because I think basically you have people who are actively looking for jobs and people who have stopped looking for jobs. And my question is, has there been some thought around those who have stopped, and how do we plan? Because for me, the creation of a fund like this is not just created to create employment for active job seekers per se. My view of what it seeks to do is to end unemployment, eliminate and then end unemployment at the end of the day. So yeah, you will correct me if I'm wrong there. But my last question, Chair, is on the issue of NYDA and employment and labor, because I think it was Vuyo who mentioned both these institutions. And my question is whether there is kind of a working together between yourselves and these two organizations. And if that is the case, what is the relationship? How do you collaborate with them, each one of them? Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. I saw Honorable Skwasana's hand. Is he still in? Looks like...
Yes, I'm still in. I was lost for a bit due to load shedding, but I'm back. Yeah, good morning, Chair, honorable members, and the team from the National Treasury. We welcome the presentation on the jobs funds. Yeah, I've heard that they've got a number of partners, which includes private companies and non-governmental organizations. So I just want to find out in terms of the recruitment criteria, which criteria do they use to recruit their partners? Do they have to apply, and then after application, what happens? What is the criteria that they are using in order to appoint such partners? Secondly, I think they also indicated that they also assist on the, or they are intending to also assist on the informal economy. So I just want to find out if they have already started with assistance on the informal economy, and how is their success in that particular regard on the informal economy versus the the formal economy. Lastly, just want to find out if do they have continuous support and monitoring mechanisms to ensure that those who have been funded remain committed to the objectives of this initiative, or they just fund and then leave those and then continue to look at other people that request funding and then fund them, then continue, or do they have a continuous program of supporting and monitoring to ensure that those who are funded, they remain committed to the objectives of this initiative? Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, honorable members. I think Job Fund team, though you do have the honorable members has asked clarity-seeking questions, and I think they are justified. As you know, you end by asking again another, money, 3 billion. Mostly, we would like to hear what is your monitoring strategy, and the breakdown of company that you have supported. I think that should be easy because you have them. And over to you. Can you now respond, please?
Thank you. Thank you so much for the questions, and very important questions. And it presents us with an opportunity to then further expand on the work of the Jobs Fund. I will start with I think it was the Honorable Shivambu, who had asked about the Jobs Fund's relationship with the Department of Education. So two years ago, we were asked to participate in the design of the presidential.
Chair. Please. I never spoke about the relationship between the Education Department and Jobs Fund. Can you please correct that?
Apologies, Chair. I didn't then catch the first member. It could have been the Honorable Buthelezi that had asked that question. So I do apologize, Honorable Shivambu. But the question was put, and it was the first question about the relationship between the Jobs Fund and the Department of Education. And as I said, we were requested to participate in the design of the Presidential Youth Employment Intervention. And in that work, we worked closely with the Department of Education. And one of the key issues that arose in the design was that, as we all know, there's a significant skills mismatch between what the economy, the skills that the economy desires, and what is actually being produced by our education institutions, and also that the content of those of the education programs needed to be revisited, as well as the modality of delivering. It is very clear that we need more on-the-job training. We need better proxies to determine whether unemployed young people can do a job other than just an education proxy. All of this research and work has gone into a program that is now proposed by the Department of Education. They are going to be launching a fund. It's going to be an outcomes fund, and they're going to be looking to partner with organizations that are able to more rapidly bring young people closer to the world of work. I think then the question by Honorable Shivambu was firstly a comment about this surely cannot be true. And so I want to go to the issue directly. And the question was asked, who is the recipients of the grants? What are the number of jobs? What are the sectors? What are the demographics? Who are these companies that employ the people who have that come on board via the intermediaries? We were certainly, and on our website, we do have a list of projects that have received the grant. We do also have a deep understanding of the number of jobs that are being created, in which sectors, and in which organizations. As we have said earlier, the modality that the Jobs Fund uses is to work through intermediaries, and those intermediaries then either on-lend, if they are enterprise development programs, they on-lend those funds. But Vuyo has also made the point that the majority of the beneficiaries of the Jobs Fund's grant has been previously disadvantaged individuals. But we can most certainly and very happy to make available those details. I'm also going to ask Vuyo to come in. He's the head of monitoring and evaluation, to provide you with an overview of our framework. There was also a question about, Vuyo, if you just hold on a second, I'm just going to go through it, and then you can come back. Or perhaps no, go ahead, talk about the monitoring framework that we have, and I'll continue after.
All right. Thank you very much, Nadra. And again, honorable members, thank you for the questions. So at the start of any project, any applicant applying to the Jobs Fund, one of the tools that we use is an implementation plan that applicants complete as part of the application process. This implementation plan is a detailed plan in terms of how any particular project is going to be rolling out its intervention over a 2 or 3 year period. So it takes into account specific milestones in terms of delivery, when those milestones will be delivered in the course of the project implementation. It also sets out specific measurable indicators around the delivery of those milestones. So, for example, it'll speak to indicators around the number of jobs that a project is looking to create, the number of people that they will be training. It'll take into account placements of people in vacant positions. So it's a detailed plan around delivery. Now, once a project is approved by the Jobs Fund, the Jobs Fund's Investment Committee, that plan then kicks into action. So when a project is allocated a grant, it is not paid the entire grant upfront. That grant is paid in tranches, and those tranche payments are contingent on specific deliverables having been met. Our standard of delivery is a minimum of 80% delivery against any key outputs per quarter. Now, projects will then be required to report on a quarterly basis against those deliverables that are set out in the implementation plan. In the reporting, the Jobs Fund management goes through the detail of that project's reporting. It also takes into account the evidence that is submitted by each project around each of the milestone deliverables that it claims to have received. So for an example, if a project says that we have created 100 jobs, the Jobs Fund will require of that project 100 contracts of employment, or any other type of evidence that we would have agreed with that partner at the start of that particular project. So we do collect evidence. That is the same evidence that is then audited by the Auditor General each year to confirm that indeed the claims that we're making around job creation are correct. So it isn't that we fund a project and then we walk away. We are working with the project. It's a high-touch project management process that we undertake with each project, as I said, on a quarterly basis. We do annual audits, project audits, now not with the Auditor General, but each project has a budget to do audits in terms of the performance of their project and the results claims that they're making, both from a jobs perspective as well as from a financial perspective. We then also, at the end of a project's implementation period, which, as I said, is typically 2 or 3 years, we will then monitor the project post that period for about a year or two to ascertain whether the project continues to implement without now the Jobs Fund grant coming into effect. And the 51,000 jobs that we spoke about earlier speak to the job creation that continues to take place after the grant has indeed stopped. So we also do midterm evaluation. Well, we do a formative evaluation. So this is an evaluation for each project that is implementing, that basically sets out the baseline of any particular project's implementation. It says, before the intervention that you've partnered with the Jobs Fund begins, let us see the levels at which you are currently operating at against the indicators that we will be measuring as we roll out your program. Where are you at? So if you've been creating, say, 10 jobs per year, we will baseline those 10 jobs at that point, and then halfway through the program, we will then do a midterm evaluation where we are assessing to say, all right, so we've approved a particular theory of change for your project. Let us see whether that theory of change remains and whether there has been an improvement from your baseline of your ability to create jobs, to partner with other organizations, and so forth. At the end of the implementation period, each project then also does a close-out report that is a self-reported report that says this is how we have done in this project. And they will also do an independent evaluation that is done by people that are not part of the implementation team to say, this is from an objective perspective, how this project indeed has met or hasn't met its objectives as contracted. So in a nutshell, Chair and committee members, that is the process that we follow.
Thank you, Vuyo. Then to continue with the questions, there was also the question about we're requesting 3 billion and where does that number, how does that number come about? Well, in respect of the research we've done, in respect of the gaps we've identified in the market, we think that the market is able to absorb that number. However, the market is not able to absorb that number within a 3-year medium-term expenditure framework. And in our experience, in the fund, when we ask for these funds, it really is about signaling to the market that the fund is open for business, then having to go and do some serious project origination. And the money then only flows towards the tail end of the MTEF period. I will talk more about that. So that is trying to put the 3 billion rand into context. Honorable Abraham had also then asked us about how does the impact of the Jobs Fund compare to the rate of unemployment in the country? After all, we're called a Jobs Fund. Honorable Abraham, just to say anecdotally, when they gave us that name, we said, oh my hat, no, we can't have a name like that because the Jobs Fund, the reason we have the mandate that we have is to catalyze innovation. We're not a mass employment program. We look for innovation. We look for opportunities to share risk. We look for new models. And so by its very nature then, the fund is an experimental fund where it wants to look for new ideas, how to create, incubate those ideas, and then try to replicate. The Jobs Fund is also a complementary fund to all other government interventions. It is not a mass employment program, and it's not designed to address the structural constraints that bedevil employment creation in our country. We look at particular barriers that exist within the labor market. And those barriers could be around access to finance, around access to support. It could be around accelerating the development of skills of young people and getting them connected to the labor market. It could be about improving agricultural value chains. And so it is, the Jobs Fund cannot be the answer and the only answer to the structural constraints that we experience in the country. And so, as Vuya has indicated, the job numbers that have been achieved, it is modest. It has been achieved over a sustained period. Now, you might say, well, given the size of the unemployment problem, we just need to solve for this within a very short period of time. Indeed, we do. But today, Honorable Chair and members, we need to also acknowledge that while mass employment programs create an important safety net in our country, we have to build the foundations now for more sustainable demand, for more sustainable job creation, and that takes time. The question was also asked about how do we work with the NYDA. Through the Presidential Youth Employment Intervention, we actually took responsibility for implementing the National Youth Service Program on their behalf. We did that because we had capacity. We did that because the initiative needed to gain traction rapidly. However, our intention is not to continue to run with implementation. Our intention at the inception was to incubate and to build capacity within the NYDA to take on the responsibility of the mandate that they do have. Now, at the moment, we are in discussion about how we transition implementation of the second funding round. And what we will do as the Jobs Fund, we will ensure that they have the requisite skills and capability to continue with that implementation. However, I think it is important that as government, we not create parallel systems within government of delivery, that departments who are mandated to do particular things must be empowered, and we must build their capacity so that we do have a broader ecosystem within government that has implementation capability, Chair. There was also a question about the number of partners we have in the private sector and the non-profit sector, and how do we recruit them? Well, we run open calls for proposals. To date, the fund has had 10 funding rounds. It has issued 10 calls for proposals. We announce these calls for proposals. We put it in the media. We go on road shows. We invite DFIs. We invite various people within the ecosystem to a briefing session. And then people apply online. We opened yesterday a new funding round. That funding round will close on the 17th of July. We don't operate as a DFI where we continuously open for funding applications because it is a competitive process. We wait for all the applications to come, and then we process those applications against the criteria of the fund. The fund has a set of eligibility criteria, and that is around your whether you are tax compliant, whether the intervention that you are planning requires requires to meet any regulatory issues, for example, water licenses, tax compliance, your ability to raise cash matched funding is also one of the criteria. We also have impact criteria, and in those impact criteria, we look for additionality. Additionality for us is about asking for funding, not to do the job that you're currently doing, but to do more than what you are currently doing. We look for value for money, we look for sustainability, and we look for innovation. The criteria is available on the Jobs Fund's website. We also have a very detailed program of a handout around questions that people might ask. And we also encourage those people who are interested in applying to connect with us so that we can provide them with guidance as to how to complete their application forms and to give them greater insight on the kind of projects that we are looking for. I'm going to ask Nazim to talk a little bit about the informal economy and the kind of support that we provide in the informal economy. But I think that I have answered this first round of questions, Chair. Thank you. Nazim, would you like to come in and talk about our work in health, in education, and elsewhere? Thank you.
Thank you, DG. Good morning to the honorable members, and thank you for the opportunity again. On the informal economy, and we will note we do not call it the informal sector. For us, that is a very important distinction, because for us, the informal economy, the informal sector, it spans across various sectors within our economy. So to be all inclusive, we refer to it as the informal economy. Now, the question was asked, have you started with that interventions? Over the 10 calls for proposals, we have supported at least 15 interventions that is directly related to the informal economy. And we've had some success in that sector. Vuyo earlier spoke to the aid to pay intervention, where we supported an intervention to support South African spaza shop owners to improve their operations and expand their operations. And so we've had various levels of success within that. Having said that, we have other interventions that are supported over 72,000 small and micro enterprises. Again, we've been very successful within that space. But for us, the informal economy remains a lot to be learned. And the purpose of wanting to expand and do more within the informal economy is about learning how the informal economy operates, the needs of the informal participants, the informal economy participants, because I think it's fair to say that very often those participants are regarded as an homogeneous group of people. We have learned that they are not. They have specific needs depending on geography, their own circumstances, etc. And the purpose for us wanting to expand our reach within the informal economy is to really learn about what the needs within the informal economy is, what the various participants require to be successful, and hence we intend to have the new funding round particularly focused on the informal economy and so forth. I hope I've answered the question. Suffice to say, there's a lot to learn about the informal economy. We're on board with that and intend to do a lot more work within the informal economy. Thank you.
Thank you, Nazim. Just by way of practical example, we've supported qualified nurses through a project of ours that is called Unjani. And it's a partnership with Imperial in the private sector, essentially providing qualified nurses with business development skills and giving them an opportunity to set up their own clinics within the communities in which they are operating. And then to run those clinics, make an income, and ensure sustainability, not only of the services that they provide within the local communities, but also within for sustainability for the enterprises. That program has grown to such an extent that some of those nurses now, having achieved a level of success, are able to now begin to open up more than one clinic. We have also intervened in the early learning childhood space, where again supporting micro enterprises with working with women in communities who are wanting to set up early learning childhood facilities within their communities, running that as a business. But one of the challenges that they have met up with is the issue around licensing and accreditation. And so to that end, of course, we also have to work with our sister departments in trying to unblock those barriers. Thank you, Chair.
Chair, if I may, Chair. I also like to highlight the work we've done in the informal within the agriculture space. So included in the 72,000 SMMEs that we have supported over the last 10 years, we've also supported 17,000 small or emerging farmers that generally operate within the informal economy. And what the intention around those interventions has been to open up and enable those small farmers to enter the more lucrative value chains that do exist in the country. And to date, we've been able to support 17,000 small, older, or new era farmers, as they are called now. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I see the hand of Honorable Shivambu. Do we have a follow-up question? Over to you, please.
No, Chair, my request is that can we be given the list of who has been the recipients of the jobs fund and how much were they given and who did they create the jobs for, at what level? Can we be given that, even if it's not in this meeting, can we be given that in writing so that we're able to check this thing? There's nothing believable of what has been said thus far. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Shivambu. I think, can you just respond on this one? Can we given the list, even if it's not today, but just the breakdown before I can make the close up? Just a yes or no.
Yes, of course. I'm sorry, Honorable Shivambu did not hear me the first time. Of course we will. Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you, honorable members. Thank you, team job. And I just want to say that we appreciate the presentation and any effort that is done to create jobs in the country and to help build the economy is appreciated. And also, I would just encourage you and say, let's continue to put our people first and work within the policy of the country. There could be the people who do not have access to internet, especially of the informal economy. And I'm really happy because we have already mentioned that you have started something there. You said, I think 15. We appreciate that you have started something to support them. And we will encourage you to do more to support them. I mean the spasa shop, the informal economy, because this is where our people are. And also, I also appreciate for you saying that you will indeed supply the committee of the breakdown of people that you have started, but so that this question shouldn't be raised again. And on that note, if there's nothing, I will just say thank you, and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, team, finance.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much to the committee. We deeply appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you
so well.
Chair. Thank you, sister.
Malibongo.
Malibongwe.